Why Mercedes had the fastest car in Brazil? The Brazilian Grand Prix of 2021 was perhaps the most dramatic weekend of a dramatic season with Lewis Hamilton. An energy unit changed its penalty on the grid, was disqualified and thrown behind to qualify for the sprint, overcame 15 cars in Saturday's 24-lap race, and took second place. 10 on the grid on Sunday, edging past Max Verstappen in the final 12 rounds. It was a rather extraordinary performance, which he described as probably my best. He has a super-fast Mercedes and Red Bull is having a harder time than usual, but that's unlikely to allow him to do what he's done. The competitive image between the two cars has been further inverted in this crazy transition season. Here it is expected to be roughly equal between them, with Red Bull's downforce giving them the edge in Zone 2 and Mercedes' low drag in Zones 1 and 3, while weather elapsed in Regions 1 and 3 are almost the same, like 1 of 2. But a few things have unbalanced those scales. Hamilton's new power unit and the limitation of the Red Bull front in the way he uses histories. Mercedes experienced power supply problems for most of the second half of the season. As a result, he runs his engine cautiously, but on top of that, performance drops as mileage turn out to be higher than expected. Want to know about it in detail? Well, stay tuned till the end. Hello everyone. Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we will talk about why Mercedes had the fastest car in Brazil. Meanwhile, subscribe to this channel and press the bell icon. That being done, let's start. Christian Horner estimates that Honda takes just 0.1 seconds of performance from the start of the life cycle to the end. The Mercedes takes at least twice that amount, but it could be more powerful than the Honda when new. As noted on Friday, even excluding Red Bull from the equation, the Mercedes was a lot faster in the rest of the pitch around Interlagos than its seasonal average in a qualifying round. Their average qualifying advantage over the fastest non-Red Bull team next season Brazil is 0.55%. In Brazil, this margin is 0.98%. By far, it was the fastest car of the whole season ahead of the competition. Is it all about a new engine? If so, that means the new motor is worth about 0.35 seconds more than the old one, such as a difference between 0.55% and 0.98 st, which seems like a lot. But maybe 0.2 seconds of that is the real difference, and the other 0.15 seconds is Mercedes running it in higher mode with an extra engine in the group, with nothing to lose and numbers missing points that need to be corrected. Honda's engine performance is very slow during its life, says Verstappen, while their engine seems to deliver a lot of performance when new. But I think it will be back pretty soon. However, Red Bull is skeptical. Even heading into the weekend, before the new power supply is announced, she believes Mercedes' straight-line advantage can't just be explained by its low-rate concept rather than what she's up to. There with his hind wings. Adrian Newey has informally discussed this with the FIA. He was unable to bend it beyond a predefined load threshold as was customary before technical guidance on the matter came into force in France this year. Because now there are markers on the car and a rear camera to track it. Can the teams figure out how to bend the underside of the main plane, out of view of the camera, in a way to eliminate drag at high speeds? Maybe even a legitimate but very clever way. Verstappen was fined €50,000 for touching the wing of a Mercedes while trying to find out. The back wings of the top teams, including Red Bull in Mexico and the US, seem especially fragile this year. So perhaps looking for proof of this, the FIA's technical representative instead found Hamilton's DRS gap violation. This causes considerable confusion for the waters as the 0.2 mm oversize on the right will have almost no measurable impact on lap times, as confirmed by Hamilton's speed, with alternate wings in the sprint. If there's one wing-related contribution to the radical shift in Mercedes' performance in Brazil, it's not the DRS gap. Ironically, this may simply be a distraction from what it could be. Hamilton was 9 km/h faster in the speed trap than Verstappen in Friday's qualifying, which is no exaggeration. The distance was much larger, 22 km/h, in the sprint, but Hamilton was already very close to the other cars. The qualifying difference as each car sets its best lap is the largest and in this comparison. Red Bull loses to Mercedes by about 0.2 seconds in Zone 1 and 0.16 seconds in Zone 3. One might have expected Red Bull's inherently higher downforce to compensate for the twists and turns in the mid-zone, but that wasn't the case in qualifying. And it was all down to the front tires. Red Bull overheats, gliding on cool, clear surfaces. Since Friday, the groove is too hot while the core is still cold. The Mercedes, with its stronger front and weaker rear, balanced much better in these conditions, and therefore lost 0.145 seconds longer than the best Red Bull in Zone 2. There's still some dark art about the tire's use and how it fits in with aerodynamic balance, track temperature, and asphalt type. But Red Bull thinks a little understaffing on a chilly Friday will likely lead to a good balance in Sunday's high-temperature forecast. Saturday's sprint was in the middle and Red Bull was much better than when they were in qualifying, although Verstappen accepted a low-risk second place behind Valtteri Bottas' Mercedes, who ran faster due to soft compound tires and Verstappen vehicles. Sunday is still pretty even. However, like all cars on the track at 55 degrees Celsius, it must be driven at the temperature of the tires. They weren't as extreme as Austin, but the same process and, at the pace Verstappen established after he led Bottas in the second inning of the race, required a two-stop strategy. As Bottas raced in Senna S's to try to protect his overly slippery start, Verstappen hung him up to dry, the Mercedes swerving into the curve at an awkward angle and slow enough in round 3 to give Sergio Perez a can slip past him on turn 4 to put Red Bull in the race for 1 to 2 seconds. This seems to have put Red Bull in control of his destiny, even as Hamilton moved from 10th in the leaderboard, 5th in sprint, plus 5-place energy unit change penalty. Lewis finished 6th at the end of the first round and knocked out Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc's Ferraris in each successive lap before being knocked out by a wave of Bottas in the 5th round, and Hamilton finished 3rd. It was impressive but perhaps predictable. It's a Mercedes that drives past slower cars and isn't prepared to engage a championship contender. The interesting question is whether his performance advantage over the Red Bulls in qualifying persists in the race, where track temperatures have less of an effect on the RB16B's characteristics. It really cannot be called. Not at first, even when Hamilton was helped by a safety car on lap 6, due to the Yuki Tsunoda/Lance Stroll incident scattering debris on the track, causing him to latch onto Perez's tail instead, because it's 3 seconds slower. VSC 3 laps later due to more debris, but as the race continued, Hamilton engaged Chico, with Verstappen taking the lead. He took a 3.7-second lead by the time Hamilton finally overtook Perez, past the lap before leaving Perez with no battery left to defend Hamilton's 19th lap in the Senna S's. But Hamilton did not erode Verstappen's lead. Both are cycling at medium tire temperatures and hoping to make it through 25 laps. They got past Perez and Bottas, and shortly after Hamilton pulled the 7th-place Daniel Ricciardo's McLaren out of the pit stop window, Mercedes sent it into lap 26, forcing Red Bull to respond with Verstappen in the next round. Mercedes had an educated hunch that Red Bull would demote the tough guys they used to overtake faster than them. That's how it turned out. The cropping effect put Hamilton 1-2 first 3 seconds away from Verstappen, and without the pace to overtake him, they've been dealing with tire savings for a while. Meanwhile, another VSC shortly after Perez pitted allowed Bottas a cheap pit stop and pushed him to 3rd. So what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below. And that's all for the day, guys. If you found this video interesting, make sure to hit the like button. Also, subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update from us. Thank you for